Hey guys, welcome to my channel and I'm back again with another really interesting video, and this is a continuation of my Rust Basics series. I know we have not been doing many videos on Rust, but finally I got some time to actually continue the series, and we will be finishing that so that the playlist of Rust Basics is complete. But now, without wasting any time further, let's get started with today's video. As you can see on my screen, guys, today we are going to discuss about the variable scope in Rust. So let's get started. So first of all, guys, what is a variable? We already know that. For example, in case of Rust, if you want to declare a variable, you simply use let and you give a variable name. For example, let name equals to super lazy coder, and that's how you simply declare a variable, right? But what we want to understand is that if I want to take that variable and I want to only use it in a certain part of your code or a certain part of your function, is that possible? And the answer to that is correct. We can use variable scopes to actually make sure that your variable is only being used in a certain part of the code. So now let's see how this works with an example. So now let's say that I say outer name, let's say outer name. So outer name is super lazy coder, okay? And what I want to do is I want to create a inner code block. And to create an inner code block, all you need to do is create these brackets, and whatever code you now write in these brackets becomes your inner block, okay? So you have to just right here, that is the inner block, okay? And whatever code is outside the inner block is your outer block. So that's why I said the name of the variable is outer name. Now let's declare another variable inside this inner block, and let's call this let inner name, okay? And let's say the value of the inner name is something called as super active coder, okay? So that's the value of the inner variable. Now if I want to print this variable, all I need to do is use the println macro. So println, and you just do inner name equals to the placeholder brackets, and finally just take the inner name and put it here, right? So this is how you can print any variable. But look at this, that where I declared my inner name variable, just after that I am printing the inner name variable as well. If I try to take the same command and I try to print it outside this inner block, we will actually try how this works. But let's say we are printing this inner variable also outside the inner block, which is in the outer block, and we are also printing the outer name variable, okay? So these are the two variables we are printing. Now let's run this code, and what you guys will see is that we are getting a compilation error because it says cannot find a value inner name in this scope, okay? Why is it saying so? Because inside these brackets, if you declare a variable, then that variable is only scoped to these brackets, okay? So basically now you cannot use this variable inner name outside this block because you only declared it inside this inner block. Now to fix this, if I simply delete this println and I print the outer variable in the outer block, inner variable in the inner block, and run this, you will see that it does get printed, okay? So the inner name is super active coder and the outer name is super lazy coder, right? So this is how the variable scopes work. Now let's say another concept. Another concept is called as variable shadowing, right? So what is variable shadowing? Let's see if you have this variable called as name, right? Now this name variable is called as super lazy coder here, okay? Now you must be thinking that can we use this outer variable and can we print this inside the inner block? And answer to yes is yes. So you can actually use this print statement, and the outer block is actually accessible inside the inner block also. So if I say println name and I do this outer variable name, you can see that if I execute this command, you will see that this is not a problem. This will work. So the outer variable has been declared as a global variable for your inner block. So this outer variable can be accessed in the outer as well as in inner block, but the inner variable can only be accessed in the inner block. Okay. Now what we are trying to do is trying to check variable shadowing, right? Let me change the name here, variable shadowing. So let's say I created this variable in the outer block. It's called super lazy coder. Now I am printing that inside my inner block, which is fine. But now inside my inner block, I declare the same variable again. So let's say I declare the same variable, but now I name it super active coder. Okay. So now if I try to print this exact same name variable in the inner block, and I'm also printing this exact same variable in the outer block. So name in outer block, name in inner block, name before shadowing in inner block. Okay. Now let's run this command and see what happens with this. So there you go. You can see that we can, first of all, we can access the outer variable in our inner block. So that's definitely correct because you can see it's printing it. But when it prints it, we haven't shadowed this outer variable. Okay. Once we shadow it, you can see that when I change the name, basically what I do is I create the same variable name again and I assign it a different value. That becomes shadowing, because now in the inner block, after this command, whatever code is present, it thinks that name variable is not super lazy coder. It thinks that the name variable is changed to super active coder. So now if I do this print statement, it actually prints the shadowed part of it. It actually prints super active coder, because from this point onwards it doesn't consider the outer variable name, it considers the inner variable name. Okay, so it says super active coder. But once you are out of this inner block, that shadow is lost. Once you are out of the inner block, the outer block has no access to this new name variable created with a different value. The outer block only has access to the outer name variable, so it still prints super lazy coder. So that's called as variable shadowing. Okay, it basically is when a variable is declared within a particular scope, has the same name as the variable declared in the outer scope. Okay, so in that case, in that particular scope we use the new variable, but in the outer scope we use the outer old variable. Okay, now that is called as variable shadowing. Now we will see another concept which is called as variable freezing. So let's say we just shadowed this variable by making sure that we create another variable. Like let's say I don't want to create another variable. I want to actually just change the value of my outer variable only, but inside the inner variable, right? So let's say I make this name as a mutable variable. So name is a mutable variable, and I don't want to print it for now because we know, we have seen the shadowing already. We know that this is only going to print super lazy coder. What we do is that for now we create a shadow variable called as name again, and we assign this name variable the value of outer variable. Okay, so now my inner shadow variable is actually having the value super lazy coder only. Okay, now I want to change the value of this variable. Okay, and I want to print it. So name in the inner block, and similarly I go to the outer space and now I change the name again. So let's say now I change the name to, name becomes equals to, let's say please subscribe. That becomes the name. Okay, let me add the semicolon. Now what do you think is going to happen? Let's first run this code and we will break down the output. So you can see that the code didn't run. We get a compilation error, and what it says is that it cannot assign twice to the immutable variable name. Why did it say that? Because definitely we created name as a mutable variable, right? So here's the thing, guys. Your name is a mutable variable only in the outer block. So that is why when you are outside the outer block and you do name becomes equals to please subscribe, you don't get an error here. You get an error in this line number 9, because in the inner block you have created the name variable. Again, you have created a shadow variable of name, but this shadow variable is actually not mutable. And when you try to assign it a different value, it says, well, you cannot assign it because you cannot assign it twice, right? So this line number 9 is that is why it's giving the issue. So basically guys, this is called as variable freezing. So let's say you want to create a code in which in the outer section of the code you want to be able to change the variable name, but in the inner section of the code, or whosoever is calling that particular function with your with your variable, you do not want them to actually change anything about your variable. You want them to use it as it is. You don't want them to do this kind of stuff. Then all you have to do is just assign that same outer variable to a immutable variable that will become the shadow, and that way you won't be able to actually modify it. But if you want to modify that outer variable somewhere outside that inner block, you still will be able to. So inside this inner block the variable will be frozen and it won't be mutable. So that's why that's how you can freeze your variable. Now if I simply remove this line and I simply run this code, you would see that this would definitely work. So name in the inner variable is now not changed, it remains to super lazy coder. Wherever name in the outer variable, I have changed it to please subscribe, and now you can see that that gets printed. So that was all about the variable scopes in Rust, guys. You can use these inner blocks to change the scope of your variable or to use it in any way you want to. And the same goes with any calling function as well, guys. If you create a new function and you are calling it, so that will also act like an inner block for you, and in that function whatever scope you decide for your variable, just like this, would work. Okay, so that was all about the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something from it. If it was informative for you guys, then please do not forget to like this video, share this video with your friends, and if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback for me, please do write down in the comment section below. I would be happy to read them. And in the end, guys, as this code says, please subscribe to Super Lazy Coder. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, take care and bye bye.